Hello, this is Fernando Duran, and I will do the oral presentation for the CLIL class. And there is not so much time, so I will try to be really concise. As you can see here, this is a web page with all the information divided first in a presentation, then introduction, lesson plan, activities, rubrics, and resources. And there is a brief explanation of each of the items. Let me give you some context about why this is really important for me. I am a principal of a high school, bilingual Ivy High School in Puebla, Mexico. 5 years ago, we began the bilingual project, and at the very beginning, it was complicated because we have no idea about this CLIL methodology. That is actually the main reason why I am studying this master, and this is why I have found really interesting this project and this class. This is some explanation about the school. We are authorized to teach about the diploma and the career-related program. You can see the web page with all the different high schools that we have, because this is a system of 10 different high schools in Puebla, Mexico, and in cities really near to Puebla. In the introduction, you can see two main topics. First, the general objectives of the unit. This is like the methodology. What items, what elements are we taking into account to plan our unit? There are four main objectives. First, the academic outcomes, because this is a history class, not only a language class. So it is important to address all the requirements of the IB, and this is a history class. So it is important to focus on the primary sources analysis, and right here you can find some examples about what the IB considers important in the analysis of the primary sources. Number two, the language outcomes, because if we are teaching content in a second language, it is important to focus on those specific descriptors that we will address. The Common European Framework of Reference gives us a lot of information about this, as you will see in the lesson plan, there are four specific descriptors that we are trying to address. Number three, approaches to learning and teaching, because this is important not only to focus on the content or the language, but also in the skills that students are developing. For example, right here you can see that the approaches to learning are focused on the thinking, communication, social, self-management, and research skills, and also the approach that the teacher are using to teach their class, for example, based on inquiry, concepts, collaboration, etc. Number four, the IB learner profile. So we have to take into account also that we are not only working with skills, content, and language, but also with human beings. What are what will we be helping the students to be after the class? So are we making them inquirers, open-minded, caring? So this is also important. And about the lesson plan, about the activities are based on three different elements. Number one, transdisciplinary elements, the relation with talk, the relation with CAS, and also the key terms, the verbs that the students must understand in order to answer all the exams, paper one, paper two from the IB. For example, compare and contrast, evaluate, define, etc. Then we can find the scaffolding activities. This is important in CLIL, and I have divided the lesson plan in seven stages, going from the pre-reading, vocabulary reading, then we get in the primary sources analysis, written production, oral production, those are productive skills. At the end, the project, because I really believe that the project-based approach engages the students in their own learning. And finally, assessment and evaluation. And right here, I found a really interesting document about assessment and evaluation in CLIL. Let's move on to the lesson plan. The lesson plan about the main topic is propaganda in World War II. This is actually a very important topic in the history high level diploma class, and this is the template for the lesson plan. The lesson plan includes the different topics from the tools of propaganda, the study of the primary sources, espionage and propaganda, etc., the main objective, and this is important. We are talking about B2 students. That is why the activities that they will develop are more complex or more demanding. The general objectives are divided into first the academic outcomes, because we need to fulfill all the requirements of the guide of the IB, and then the language outcomes. As you can see, as you can see right here, there are some verbs, key terms that lead the academic outcomes. For example, identify and describe the types of propaganda, compare and contrast, evaluate the impact of propaganda in World War II. And then about the language outcomes, they are divided in 4 different skills: reading and writing, speaking and listening. But I also got in the Common European Framework of Reference, and I have chosen 4 specific descriptors of the B2 level. For example, in reading, we are talking about reading for information and argument, and this is the descriptor. In writing, we are trying to address the creative writing, speaking about formal discussion, and listening to radio, audio, and recordings. So we are trying to focus our work on those specific skills. Approaches to learning. In this class, we're trying to help the students to develop the thinking and communication skills, and approaches to teaching based on inquiry, conceptual understanding, and teamwork and collaboration. At the end, we have the IB learner profile. The IB command terms that we will focus on: compare and contrast, evaluate, reflect, and analyze. The link with a theory of knowledge, for example, which of the ways of knowing is more related to propaganda, and also a link to CAS. And then we have all the description of the 7 stages in the activities: pre-reading, vocabulary reading, primary sources, written production, and project. I will explain this in depth in a second. And at the end, we have formative assessment and summative assessment, and we have rubrics for those right here in another link. Let's see the activities. I try to scaffold the activities, give it at the very beginning more input, more support to the students, and because even they are B2 students, but they are still learning and acquiring the language. So it was important to begin with a pre-reading. In the pre-reading, the topic is the tools of propaganda, and as you can see, it's a really brief paragraph, and at the end of each line, you can find a number. And the questions are really similar to those questions asked in the TOEFL exam, because our program ends with a TOEFL certification. We're trying to give support to the students in this field. For example, right here in line 1, the pronoun he refers to. This is not only to prepare them for the TOEFL, but also to help them organize their ideas and understand that they can write using pronouns, for example. So this is the main objective of this pre-reading. Then we have 2 different activities related to vocabulary. The first one, they have to match the synonyms, for example, pressuring, to coerce, and that way they are getting vocabulary that then they can use in productive activities. It's again a really brief paragraph about wartime, so they can get from the context the synonym, and that way increase their vocabulary, their glossary. A second activity related to propaganda, types of propaganda. The instructions are to match the name of the propaganda type, the description, and the primary source. That way they can have more information to get out of the stress and to focus on what is important, so they can also get start coming into the primary sources analysis, because as you can see here, these posters, these comic books are primary sources, so they are already getting in that topic. Number three, reading. So this is a more extensive paragraph, but we are highlighting some concepts that are important. Right here, for example, this is important because this is the author's primary sources analysis. So this will serve as a model, because in the following activities, students are asked to make a primary source analysis, and from here they can find a model. For example, right here the author is talking about the United We Win poster, and he explains this poster is of two young men working on an engine promotes the citizen of America to work harder so the army has more materials. So this is a primary source analysis in a second language, so the students are getting that models. Then they are exposed to three different primary sources, and using those models above, they have to make their own analysis, but also we are scaffolding the process, giving them some connectors. Right here, you can see, for example, on the one hand, on the other hand, so they can contrast and compare those primary sources using these connectors. Similar to this is this activity, primary sources analysis about espionage and propaganda. Right here you can find the instructions describe using the following, or using the model in the previous text, describe the source number one, compare sources one and two, etc. Then we go on to the productive activities. Number five is to written production about World War II propaganda objectives. They have to match with an arrow the objectives and the descriptions. Again, they are getting more vocabulary, and they have to write. They have to write 3 paragraphs about the explanation of the objectives right here. But we are supporting this activity with more connectors. So, for example, such as despite, in spite of, because of. That way they can connect their ideas. And finally, the oral production. They have to watch a video. Right here they have the link to a video. It's a really funny video from Disney. And they have to write their own definitions of these propaganda techniques. The students can use the dictionary if they need to a better comprehension of these topics. And then they have to make a 5 minutes recording about the explanation of this video. And finally, the project. They have to create their own item of propaganda. At the end, they have to get all together, all the information, all the skills they have developed, and create either a video, a broadcast, a poster, a speech. It doesn't matter. They have to create something. Answering this question, what is the topic, what are the objectives, the techniques, and they have to make an oral presentation and discuss this propaganda item to the students. Right here, we have not enough time to explain the rubrics, but right here you can see the rubrics divided in both formative and summative assessment. Right here is the criteria and both content and language descriptors. Then you can find all the descriptors and the scores and points. And right here you can see a self-assessment. I believe this is important to include the students in his own process of learning. And at the end, you can find more rubrics about the final project, etc. So I try to explain how I have scaffolded the process, the lesson plan, beginning in the pre-reading with only some vocabulary, simple activities, to more complex activities at the end. And at the very end, students have to create something. This is because they are in a B2 level, and they have to start creating in both written and oral way. Well, thank you very much.